Hello everyone, this is Ahmed Kazim from dragonblogger.com, and this is going to be a very long video where I'm going to show you how to build a complete PC with the Thermaltake Core P3 open frame chassis. I will have all the parts mentioned in the description that I'm going to use in this build, so do check them out as well. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing you're going to need to do is install the motherboard standoff, but even before that I'm going to unscrew these 6 screws that I'll show you in a while what they do. Once they're out, turn the chassis over and unscrew the back panel. So you can see a loose part here. This is the bracket for the wall mount. Since I'm going to use the chassis as a tower, I don't need this, but if you're going to mount it to a wall, then you don't want to unscrew it. It's pretty heavy as well, so not only I am losing some weight from the chassis here, which is good, but also getting more free space for cable routing. So now let's close the back panel and turn it over. So I'm going to start my build by installing the motherboard first. Also I've got the processor in there already, but even before that you want to install the motherboard standoff. For this ATX motherboard you're going to need 7 standoffs which are provided with the chassis. So go ahead and install the standoff according to your motherboard form factor. To help you install the standoff correctly, the holes also have markers for the type of motherboard size they're used for. Once they're in, tighten them up using the standoff bolt provided with the chassis. Once they're done, place the motherboard over the standoff, align the holes, and install the screw with a screwdriver. Now there was one missing hole for my specific motherboard, so I could only install 6 screws, but that was good enough to hold the motherboard in position. That's your motherboard installed. Now let's go ahead and install the Thermaltake Water 3.0 Ultimate all-in-one CPU cooler in this rig. As you can see, for this purpose I've already installed the feet of the chassis so I can have it standing, which will be really helpful in installing the CPU cooler. You can see the foot installation process in the assembly video I did for the Core P3, links mentioned in the description. To mount the backplate for the cooler, you're gonna need to take these drive cages out first. Once they're out, we can mount the radiator on the chassis. For the installation, you want to hold the radiator like this from the back of the chassis so that the fans are not visible or actually facing the front. Then you want to install the screw with the washer in the holes. Once all the screws are installed, the radiator won't even budge. So now we can install the backplate for the cooler. Now, make sure that these parts are touching the inner side. That's for the LGA1150 socket, and then insert it into the holes on the motherboard around the CPU socket. You may need to apply some force to get it in place, by the way. Once that in, you want to turn the chassis around. Now I did have the processor installed in the motherboard already, as I mentioned, but I didn't apply the thermal compound. So now is the time to do that. I'm going to use the Arctic Silver 5 here. Just a little P-shaped dim will do it. Now pick up the base plate and hold it over like this on the processor. Align the thermal screws over the back plate holes and tighten them up. So that's your CPU cooler installed, but we still need to connect the radiator fans to the motherboard for power. If you remember, we get a 3-in-1 4-pin connector with the cooler, so I'm going to use that, attach the fan cables to it. Then take it through whichever hole on the chassis you want and install it in the CPU fan port. But like this, the cable of the two lower fans were pretty short to reach the top, so I went ahead and rotated them so the cables were now above and have it installed on the motherboard. Also, don't forget to install the cable for the pump on the motherboard as well. Since I skipped here, I've done that already. That ends the CPU cooler installation. Now let's go ahead and install the RAMs. For this build, I'm going to use 4x4 gigs of Avexir Blitz 1.1 2400 MHz GDR3 RAMs. They have LEDs on the top of them, which are always eye-pleasing to look at. So install them one by one. Once that's done, we can go ahead and install the bracket for the parallel GPU installation. So I have it installed halfway through here. You can find the process in the assembly video as well, links in the description. The reason I've installed this halfway through is we want to install the chassis cables to the motherboard first. So first we're going to install the front panel USB 3.0 cable. You can take it out of here and install it in the front USB 3.0 port present on the motherboard. Then we're going to install the front panel USB 2.0s. For this one, you want to take from below the GPU bracket. Now install the audio plug from the same position. And finally the power, reset and LED cables from the same place. Once all the chassis cables have been installed, you can install the GPU on the riser. After that, tighten it up to the support bar with 2 screws and you're pretty much done. So our build is starting to look like its final form, but we still need to install the PSU and the storage drive. So let's go ahead and install the drives next. So first let's mount this PNY Optima 120GB SSD to the cage. For the 2.5-inch drives, you're gonna need to take these toolless 3.5-inch drive thingy out first. Then align these 4 holes at the back and install it via 4 M3 screws. So that's our SSD done. Let's install the hard disk now. This is a 1TB Seagate Barracuda 7200 RPM drive. The installation is pretty easy, just take this out. Insert the hard drive, align the holes on both sides, make sure it's sitting perfectly. Then go ahead and install these clips back on the cage. Apply a little force and the drive will be locked. So now let's go ahead and install it in the chassis. As shown before, the cage uses only 1 screw on top, so go ahead and install them. Once they're in position, we still need to connect the drives to the motherboard via SATA cables. So go ahead and install one end of the cable on both drives. Take the cable through the cut-throughs nearest to the SATA port on the motherboard and attach it to the ports. So that's like 70% of our rig completed. We still need to install the power supply to power all the hardware. So let's go ahead and install that next. Now it would have been better if I installed the PSU in the beginning when the foots weren't installed. But well, that's the chassis laying flat for the PSU installation, because it would have been hella difficult to install it while it was standing. So first thing you're going to need is install the back bracket on the back of the PSU with 4 screws. You'll need to decide whether you want the PSU fan facing top or the bottom at this stage. Once the bracket is attached to the PSU, go ahead and install it on the chassis. Align the holes of the bracket and chassis, as we have holes for different size PSUs on the Core P3 as well. Align the other bracket as well, just to be sure. Then go ahead and install the screws. We can only install the PSU flat as we are using a ATX motherboard here. Otherwise, we could also install the PSU vertically with the fan facing front. So that's our PSU in as well. Now all we gotta do is install the PSU cables. So let's go ahead and do that. Other than the 24-pin and ATX port cable, the build with the current hardware is going to need one drive power cable and two 8-pin GPU power cable. So firstly, go ahead and attach the GPU cable to the PSU. Take it through the nearest cut through. Take it out through the nearest hole near the GPU and install it. Then you want to do the same for the 24-pin motherboard cable. It can be a little annoying with the branded cables. Sleeve cable for the win here. Now go ahead and attach the drive cables and take it to the back of the chassis. And now attach it to the drives. And finally we have this ATX cable. The one with my current PSU is pretty short, so I can't take it through the back and to front or from below the GPU. So I had to install it directly like that. It does take away the neatness from the build, but it still looks pretty good. So that's our PC build completed. Now you can go ahead and boot the system and it should run fine after a few boots or a BIOS reset. But is the chassis installation complete? Nope. We still have the transparent front panel to be installed, so let's go ahead and finish our project up. This final installation is going to complete our build, so let's go ahead and get it done with. For installing the transparent window, you first want to install the 4 steel poles that will hold the window from the back of the chassis. These poles have screws installed at one end, so unscrew them. Attach the same part to the front of the chassis and install the screws from the back and tighten them up. Do it for all four corners. This is like the most awesome and calming part of the complete installation, taking the paper off of the window. You don't need to heat or anything to detach the paper from this window, just straight up from the sides. So once the paper is off, go ahead and unscrew the head of the poles. Yes, they're actually screws. Now pick up the window, align the holes and tighten it up with the same screws. Installing the top one first will be easier and safer. Once all the screws are installed, we have our rig completed and ready to be used. Let me know in the comments below if you got any questions regarding the build or the process or the parts I've used. I'd be glad to help you out. So that's it for today. I'm Kazim signing off.